The Red for Ed teachers movement in Arizona has given birth to several candidates on your midterm ballots. One of them is challenging two longtime lawmakers in LD 23, Legislative District 23, that covers parts of North Scottsdale and Fountain Hills. This morning, we're joined by two of the three candidates for LD 23's two House seats. Democrat Eric Kurland, an Arizona public school teacher for 20 years, and Republican State Representative John Kavanaugh. He's one of the budget experts at the Capitol in the Republican caucus. He served there for 12 years. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
First, the ground rules. This is a conversation, not a debate. I won't time your answers. I do ask you to be respectful of each other's time, and there is a no filibuster rule. Also, before we get started, I want folks to know I did offer Republican State Rep Jay Lawrence 3 possible dates to join us. He responded that he just wasn't available. So, with that, let's get started. And let's start with you, John Kavanaugh. Let's start with where the legislative session left off, school funding. There are reports the state surplus right now is quite large, larger than anticipated. Is that right?
Larger than anticipated, but not large. But by the way, before we go into that, I just retired from 15 years of teaching, so I'm a teacher in this race too.
Okay, community college teacher?
Yes, that was following my 20-year police career, so I've got a lot of teaching on.
Did I see you at the Red for Ed march?
I was in the building looking down.
Just the tie.
Okay, let's get back to school. Just to tell you, let's get back to school funding. So large, yeah. there is a surplus. Should more of that money be used to supplement what the governor has in his 20 by 2020 plan?
Yes, and it will be, but it's not a big supplement. Look, the measures which the governor and the legislature took, very small tax increases, but massive deregulation, combined with the tax cuts in Washington, deregulation there, has caused the U.S. economy to go back into gear. And Arizona is going especially fast. We have 6% revenue growth. But that translates this coming year into only $200 million of additional ongoing money and $700 million of one-time funds. And that's based on a $10 billion budget. So we have more than we thought, but it's still not a cornucopia of cash. But just as last year, we will be devoting a significant portion to education, especially K-12, because that is priority number one.
What counts as a significant in your mind? How much is significant?
I would like, well, first of all, we have already committed to reinvesting in the teachers' pay raise. I would think that easily approaching 50% of that overall amount would go into education.
In dollar figures?
I would say maybe 400 or 500 million.
Of new dollars to education?
Yeah.
From that surplus?
That's it. And now we're going to put the teachers' pay raise that we promised in there.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Good enough for you?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, there's no dedicated stream of funding. And education right now, I hear John, and a little bit of funding went to schools last year, and thank you very much. But for his 12 years and 12 years before that, we've been cutting. So we have an education system that is 49th in the nation in per pupil funding. We're roughly $4,000 below average in per pupil funding. And the extra dollars that came last year, not 4,000, but 210. So we're talking about $210 per student from the extra dollars that came from the governor after 75,000 teachers had to go knocking on the door.
So you want a dedicated stream? You're talking about what Invested Ed wanted or something else?
No, we have to have an adult conversation, not about what we have today, but what we want tomorrow. So what is the school system we like here for Arizona? We can agree on that, I think, John and I, and then we can argue about how to fund it. But we have to get past just living for today and look at tomorrow so our kids have an opportunity to excel.
We did cut a lot of money when the Great Recession hit. We had to cut $3.5 billion from a $10 billion budget. I was the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee during that period, and it was rather brutal. We cut $3.5 billion, we did borrowing, we did everything to try to keep a bare bones government going. The economy is recovering, and we are restoring education funding. And it's not just a little bit last year. In the last 4 years, we put $2.7 billion back into education. In addition, with the Democrats, bipartisan, we extended Prop 301. We passed Prop 123. That's going to put $3.5 billion into K-12 education over the next 10 years. We've put a lot in. Do we need more? Absolutely. But we can't go faster than the money. Because if you go faster than the money, you create the same sort of fiscally irresponsible economic structure that contributed to the last Great Recession. And I would love to know what the dedicated funding stream my opponent is talking about, because I think it's tax increases. And I hope I'm not going to hear the old playbook Democrat talking points about $5 billion in loopholes that can easily be closed.
No, I won't do that.
Okay. Is it tax increases? What is it?
Well, let's first look at, you cannot claim that $2.7 billion. I mean, you guys avoided the judge's ruling 2 times. You were supposed to fund education. It was voter protected. You said, no, we're not going to do it. We have tough times. These tough times are because every year, no matter what the question was, your answer is to cut taxes. So the revenues we have, rather than a state like Tennessee that has the same demographics and the same kind of people that we do, they have $4 billion more in their general fund.
If we didn't do the tax cuts over the last 4 years, how much extra money would there be in the budget this year?
I wanted a couple more topics before we have to wrap.
Let me just say how much do you think it's costing us, the tax cuts that we did in the last 4 or 5 years? What is the dollar amount that
$600 million.
$50 million. I spoke to JLBC yesterday. Your numbers are totally imaginary.
$600 million.
Talk to nonpartisan JLBC, our budget experts. I said, if we didn't do those tax cuts, how much more would we have this year? Less than $50 million.
You know, you've been here for 12 years. Allow me to speak, because you've had a long time to fix a problem.
You have to speak facts.
15 seconds, 50 seconds, please.
Look, we put $200 million in tax credits for private schools. Those are taxes already spent. Why are we subsidizing people's religious beliefs? I just don't get it.
Okay, let's talk about charter schools. Craig Harris of the Arizona Republic's done some fine reporting on what some would call abuses, charter school millionaires. It is all perfectly legal. What kind of changes would you want to see in charter school laws?
First of all, 16%, they're public schools. So every public school should play by the same rules. Every public school. Follow oversight, no self-dealing, going out to bids. We have 16% of our kids attend public charter schools. 29% of our education budget goes with them. They get $1,500 extra additional money because they get charter additional assistance. And it's got to stop. Level playing field, we can compete.
Okay, John Kavanaugh?
I agree. There have been some problems that have surfaced, partially.
Right.
Problems have surfaced. We definitely need more accountability. We need more transparency. As a matter of fact, at the last JLBC committee hearing that I was at, we had our Auditor General talking, and I broached the issue to her. I said, what changes need to be made? And they're working on that right now. So we're
Democrats have introduced legislation to change the laws, and none of this should be a surprise to anybody.
These problems have recently come of light. No. Prior to that, you had a lot of anti-charter school bills being put being introduced, measures that were meant to stymie charter schools. Now we see some problems. Now we have our Auditor General saying we need these changes. I've already started the ball rolling on that. But let me say one thing. If you take away the $1,500, that's because they have to build their own schools and they have to maintain their own schools. There's no override.
So that's
not a level playing field.
Let me just
take that
one time.
Away.
Let's just deal with that. If that was the issue, see, I'm a problem solver.
Okay,
set up a taxing district. Set up a taxing district around the school. Let them go out for an override.
Right. Okay, got it.
Okay, but he said he wants to fund charter school construction.
And I want to make sure I thank John Kavanaugh, because you've been on the show many times, good times and bad. I do appreciate that. Eric Kurland, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great discussion.